Welcome back to the person behind the title, TSR Legal Podcast, where we explore the human stories, insights, and the experience shaping the legal profession. So it's a pleasure to be joined by Mel, recruitment at Red Kite Solicitors in Cardiff, who we spent the last 9 months navigating the fast-paced world of internal recruitment at one of Wales' most respected law firms. So it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
And welcome to the show. So we like to start with some kind of like opening questions. So during a busy day, are you a tea or coffee drinker?
Oh God. I mean, I love tea. I love a good builder's cup of tea, unless I need energy and I'm on the floor, in which case it has to be really good coffee, but generally it's tea, good tea.
Well, certainly, right?
Yeah, tea, definitely tea for me, not coffee.
I think that's, I think it's always the same. I'm always very much a coffee drinker. And before we dive obviously deeper into your role, what's the best bit of career advice you've ever received?
I think there's all sorts that's come in over the years, but I think, staying with your own integrity. But I think probably the main thing is about the culture and understanding how important the culture is. But moving into a company where you are supported, but also challenged. So a company that, maybe you're going into a role that's slightly outside your comfort zone, which is a good thing for your own growth and career development, but within a culture that will support you and give you what you need to excel and do well in that. So yeah, going into a company where people have your back, I think is probably the best advice I've had before.
And do you feel that's different because you worked in a number of different industries? Do you feel it's different across different industries?
I'm not even sure if it's different across different industries, but it's definitely different in different companies for sure.
Yeah.
People will, have great culture and pay it lip service, but not really understand what it is. But so it's up to you as an individual to go into a company and assess the little things so that you can find out what is the culture realistically, and then make that decision for yourself. But I think, I've always worked in very fast-paced, difficult industries, healthcare, technology, or and it can be difficult for companies within those industries to maintain a good culture, I think. Fortunately, you have to quite have it right, but, it can be very challenging. So you have to make that decision and find out for yourself before you accept that.
I suppose that's quite difficult to gauge before you've accepted that offer, isn't it?
So you have to use the interview process to look at, ask questions, find out, how they react when the business is under pressure, how the team dynamics work, when things are really challenging, getting them to give examples of, where their culture has come into play and what that means to them as individuals, reaching out to other people in the company that are not involved in the interview process and get their points of view on it. I mean, I don't know if, that comment from candidates, what's the culture like, probably comes up to you guys regularly all the time. So it's helping people understand how to work out what that culture is. It's not easy, but it's important.
Yeah, I think that's going to touch on a lot of the questions that we're going to kind of put together for this podcast. I think as you grow as a business, I think we did work with Red Kite since they were at the 60-man.
That's what's so great
in
for
West
us.
Wales, isn't it?
You know than me, yeah.
Maintaining that culture as you grow is one of the most important.
And is the challenge, because like I said, the bigger the company, the harder it is for them to have a very meaningful culture and for them to stick to it. And you need to have a leadership team that fully understands what that culture is and implements it every single day and everything that they do for everybody within the company. Because as soon as they lose sight of that, you will watch it.
So I suppose your journey into recruitment, to I suppose HR, what do you think you'd be doing instead if it wasn't for the world of recruitment?
I've got no idea. Honestly, I would change my mind every 5 minutes. I mean, my personal background is all over the place, from studying Egyptology and then environmental science, and I'm also a qualified HGV driver, and I've got horses, and I would need a job that would take me out of what it has to be very different every single day, which is why this industry works for me, absolutely. But I couldn't tell you, because it really would depend what mood I was in and what flavour of the month was, because I think variety is the spice of life for me. So
I think it's touched on that. I think you've had quite an interesting journey moving away from multi-agency recruitment into an internal role. What first kind of drew you into that side?
I think, certainly in terms of what got me into internal recruitment, I think I've always been really interested in sort of human behaviour and why people react the way that they do. Agency recruitment, I loved it. I love the pace of it. I love the excitement of it. And I love that you've got the candidate's interests at heart, and you understand you've got lots of different clients and you can find really good fits for that. But ultimately, I kind of moved to a place in my career where I really enjoy really understanding a company and sort of moving on to that nuance of kind of when you're bringing in people, it affects the company that you're with. And I can really understand it and have more in-depth, meaningful conversations with candidates about it, just bringing it all a bit closer to home and going a bit of a deeper dive within the company and within the candidate. So I think when you're with an agency, it's about that candidate's career across their entire career, different companies. And with here, it's about my employees' career progression within that company and how I can help that. So it's just that, I love both, but being able to be involved in the strategy and the operations side of things, it tips it for me, able to help individuals with their personal career here. So yeah, it's oranges and lemons, but I would just enjoy the internal bit.
I guess you get to see people's careers then, don't you? And to see what impact you make by recruiting those people into the firm.
Yeah, I think, as do you. I think a lot of people come to you because you've worked with them throughout their entire lifespan. And sometimes you evolve and the companies that you are working for don't necessarily fit who you are. But for me, because the way Red Kite is constantly evolving, we're looking at individuals within the company and how we can flex their role and their career paths within that. It's kind of like a microcosm of that, I suppose, but how I can help them in the shorter time or their whole career within Red Kite. So yeah, it's different, but good.
And I suppose your job role can mean so many different things across multiple industries, even different law firms within the South Wales. How would you describe what your job truly involves on a day-to-day basis?
Agony aunt,
Brilliant.
problem solver, talent scout. What day of the week is it, and what's landed on your desk that morning? I think probably one of the smallest part of my jobs is looking at CVs. I would say it's so much broader than that. You're managing, yes, the whole employee life cycle of this, but you're also working with leadership and management to say, what are we doing in 5 years' time? Like how is this role going to impact that? What have we got internally that we can make work before we look externally? We're looking at workforce planning. We're looking at hiring manager training and how we're designing the interview to get the most out of people. What behaviours do we need as a company to work for the company? You're also protecting candidate experience, and you're obviously core doing stakeholder relationship management, and it just goes on and on. But mainly, agony aunt, I think is really the key point.
I suppose it's managing expectations as you grow as a firm, isn't it? I think from Buchanan, first out with Red Kite, from a street firm in West Wales through to a medium mid to large firm in Cardiff. I suppose expectations change, your competition changes.
What we need from individuals and what individuals need from us changes all the time, and you have to stay on top of that to make sure that the people that you do bring on have a great career, and you can give them the opportunities that they need, and they benefit the business just as much. So it's a constant evolving. What's going on? How do we tweak it? Yes, so it's a great role, but it really depends what day.
And I suppose someone outside of this firm, your friends, family, what should they be surprised to learn about your role?
That it requires a lot of patience. Not the most patient person.
Brilliant.
I think they'd be shocked at how I can turn it on. I don't think people realise how much time recruitment takes, and time features so highly. You only need a small blip on your process to knock the whole process out, and you have to spend a lot of time putting it back together, and constant relationship management and staying very positive and keeping people engaged, and that takes time. And it takes a lot of patience. You're dealing with people at their most vulnerable, or at a point where they're perhaps a little bit wobbly about whether they want to move, or it's a very important part of people's lives, and you have to stay engaged, you have to stay patient. It's hard to do, especially when you've got a lot of candidates.
You're managing someone that has feelings and different motivations, circumstances change, family life. I think honestly, to this day, my grandparents passed away. I don't think they fully understood what I actually did for a job. I think it was,
Yeah,
it was a
I
job
get that.
centre.
I
I could get anyone a job. I don't think they
totally-
fully understood.
I try explaining to my dad all the time. And I remember years ago saying to him, "Oh, I'm home based, a recruiter." And he came to me 2 years ago and he was like, "Oh, it's home based you work for, isn't it?" I was like, "No, I'm a recruiter." And even now we get, "Oh, in my day, it was a little dusty office and somebody with a Rolodex and you went in there if you needed a job." And I was like, every time I try and explain, he doesn't know. In today's world, he wouldn't know how to go out and get a job.
It's really interesting that you say that because my son has lived with recruitment for most of his life. So I've been a recruiter for most of my son's life. And if you asked him somebody asked me the other day whether he'd be interested in working in recruitment. Absolutely. Under no circumstances, no. He thinks this is a job from hell. I love it. Yeah. He's just like, why do you do that job? And I'm like, because I love it. And he's like, I think he thinks I'm so bordering on completely insane,
I probably are, but
Yeah.
it's going.
It's funny how people in your family don't necessarily.
And what's involved in
No.
how we go about our work.
Yeah.
I think sometimes a wake up call when for like, when you're doing this kind of role is that actually this is somebody's life, this is somebody's livelihood. So everything they do in their personal life, their families, their children, or their animals, or whatever it is that they've got going on, you are pivotal in that. And it's having that level of respect to be able to sort of step back a little bit sometimes and let them just think through the thought process. We do a lot of relocations. You probably have a lot of people relocating into the company. So I think it's that as well, isn't it?
I think it is. Yeah. And, being happy at work is pivotal to you enjoying the rest of your life, quite honestly. And it's easy to make snap decisions and go with the company and pays you the most money, and you can turn around and we've all, I'm sure I've certainly done that within my career, and you turn around and you're like, "Oh, my darling, where's the balance? I can't, this isn't right for me." And I didn't spend enough time and I didn't have enough support from the person, necessarily the recruitment agency or whatever, that didn't spend enough time trying to work out if this was the right role for me. So it's a lot of responsibility, and you have to remember that. And you also come across, it's a difficult job market, and there's a lot of people that have been out of work for a long time, not necessarily in this sector, but in some places. And you have to really respect that they're stressed and they're frightened, and it goes both ways. So it's you have to.
I think that's why. So obviously, Carol's was here on TSR Legal for nearly 25 years, and I think that's how. We are very selective in terms of firms that we work with because we have to be, because it's people's career.
You work with these people their whole lives.
It's the card space from newly qualified all the way through to now they're partners as some of the biggest law firms in the country. And I think you've got to be making sure that if we're selling a firm, we actually believe in that firm, believe what we're telling them.
Yeah, you know what their career aspirations are, and you genuinely feel that this company can help them with that. Yeah,
and I think our job is a privilege because you get to work with people then to see their careers, and that must be really interesting when you work in house. Because I've never worked in house, I've never worked in agency, but that must be really interesting to see someone come in and see their career path.
And we have a really good success rate of that, of people that have come in. We've either supported them, through SAGs or whatever, and they've come through and they are promoted again. And we have a really great career pathway within Red Kite, so people can very clearly see what they need to do in order to get to the next level. And we have, we make it quite accessible for people to do that and become ultimately partners. We have quite a lot of partners within this firm, and a lot of them have progressed from the very beginning.
So maybe for people that aren't familiar to Red Kite, tell me a bit about Red Kite and obviously what makes the firm stand out, did you say, in your time here?
So we're a full service UK law firm, dominantly in Wales, but also a little bit in England as well. We've seen a huge amount of growth in the last 5 years. And we intend to, mainly through acquisition actually, but we're wanting to double again, but organically, not through acquisition in the next 5 years or so. We've got, I think, today 18 offices, generally from sort of Pembrokeshire to Gloucestershire. Private client, commercial. But I think what sets us apart is kind of how down to earth the people are here. It's very genuinely kind leadership. The first day that I started within Red Kite, they'd just finished doing a conference about kind leadership. And I thought, this is different. I've never come across that term before and what that means. And, it really just really embedded what I hoped Red Kite would be. But essentially, it's a company that's about, it has a really good growth mindset, but it still is very human in the way that it does that. It's trying to be very modern. There are challenges to do that, but it's also very rooted in the local communities, very much lives by its values of sort of, we only have 4, and that's the trust, boldness, teamwork and excellence, and we make sure that everything they do is rooted in that, and it's not just a lip service firm, which is really nice, but importantly, they have a lot of sort of the specialist expertise within the company that's sort of spread out in every single office. It's very accessible, very local, whilst having a really strong sort of core infrastructure that keeps it modern and vibrant. So it's great for growth in terms of your own career and as a company, and it's just kind, good, supportive place to be. It sort of sets up. Right.
I think that touches on my next point. They've Red Kite are very well regarded across the whole of Wales, and I think how they've developed in the last 15 years. I suppose, what's the secret of maintaining that strong local community feel and try to grow as a modern practice?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for sure, and I think you have to remember that each region is going to have its unique identity. And I think that's really important to maintain. Whilst having that identity, we still got to make sure that they're aligned with the Red Kite sort of shared values and cultures that we hold. So we've appointed regional leads and deputy regional leads to sort of help each location maintain that individuality that they have, to make sure that, that sort of feeling of community isn't really lost. Even as, we work towards having that unified culture of Red Kite, that people aren't afraid to be local, have that personality, and understand that we need to celebrate those differences. You walk into every single branch of Red Kite and every single one is completely different. We don't have a cookie cutter approach because we don't want to. People, feel more comfortable where they're local to, and we embrace what that means. So all offices are welcoming, they're appropriate, but we still work to that central culture. They have access to our full infrastructure that we do, but whilst maintaining the individuality.
It was evident from the Swansea office opening.
Yeah, that's exciting,
a couple of
isn't
weeks
it?
ago, and it was it was a really, really amazing space.
I still haven't seen it. I can't believe it. Got to get
It's fabulous. It's incredible how I think they want to be in the centre of Swansea. They want to invest in the local community. I think that brings you back about what you're saying about that local feel.
That was very evident that evening as well, because there was another firm of local solicitors that previously worked in that building.
Oh, really?
And they came along to see it. And
that's nice.
I knew one of the lawyers from there, and he was chatting to me and saying, "Oh, this is great. This is investment in Swansea." And the people who are like apparently they're a family-owned company in Swansea that have regenerated that building.
Yeah,
and they,
isn't it?
Yeah, and they were very sort of very vocal about what they were doing, and how sort of invested in sort of like the local community Red Kite were. So it was really interesting. And it was really nice to meet people.
That's so nice. Yeah, that's really nice. I hadn't realised that. And it is a lovely space to be. I'm sure that you pointed out to me, it's like one of the premier.
Grade A.
We'll call it the only.
Yeah, grade A office space in Swansea, and it's
in the actual town, because obviously there's SA1. But
it was something that I never. I was
That's
really, really pleasantly surprised. So, from your side, how do you think internal recruitment differs from working with external agencies?
I think agencies, like I said earlier, is about the candidate's career. About, yes, the agencies are speed. They've got more candidates that you're working with, potentially less vacancies, but it's about speed and that candidate's career and helping them migrate those big moves from company to company. And obviously internally, it's more, for me, it's about the relationships, the strategy. It's about retention. How do we keep people in? How do we flex the culture of the company to make sure that we're staying competitive and giving individuals what they need to thrive? I think when you're in-house, you see the real impact of every hire on the business as well as the individual.
I suppose it's the fit as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. I would say agency is about, the candidate's career. And like I said earlier, it's like the employee development for me. So at that point in their career, you understand, and then they can come to me and I can make sure that we can deliver what they need at that point in their career. Yeah, hopefully they stay for a long time, but what can we do at that point to reach the next step? So yeah, it's slightly different. It's got a lot of similarities, but
It's
different
interesting because I think
priorities.
TSR has always been built on having the best relationships in the market.
Yeah.
And that's how TSR is successful at having them relationships. I suppose from an outside point of view, it doesn't work internal. I can imagine your role is that you having to have such strong relationships with their pets and partners, with their partners to really find out what they actually want in terms of their roles.
I think a lot of it is, stakeholder management isn't necessary. It's obviously understanding what individuals need, but it's also my responsibility to understand what the wider business needs and to be able to funnel that, be the voice in their ear saying, have we thought about that? Is that realistically long-term a good idea? Are we making snap decisions just to get, a bum on a seat on this vacancy here, or actually do we need to think more strategically holistic? And then once that is knitted down, it means that we've got a bit of a wider scope for me to be able to have a conversation with you rather than, going out and looking for your purple squirrels or your unicorn. I've got the scope, I've had that conversation, and I work as kind of an internal consultant to, have we thought about this? Can we try this? Getting them to be open-minded. Don't forget the objectives as a company here.
So we're, as external recruiters, there's always this sort of perception that if you've got an in-house recruiter, it's not always the best. But actually, the clients that I work best with have in-house recruiters who have previously worked in agency mainly, or have always worked in-house. And that's, I know we've done something this year where we moved somebody from one location to another, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's really positive from our point of view, because, we can kind of come to you with a candidate and say, well, this person we think is a fit for Red Kite, but actually maybe they're not right for this location. But
yes, and I've got that wide reach where I can be speaking to all of those stakeholders across the business, and we can see that, whereas they might be very blinkered in their department and be like, they're not fit for us, boom, done. But actually I could say, oh, but how about maybe here? That's something slightly different. So it gives you that extra layer of consultancy, I suppose, to be able to make sure that we're not missing out on really great talent, because sometimes you don't have as a holistic view as you might need to as a hiring manager. Yeah. So that's good. I'm glad that you work together. I totally agree. I think if you have a good internal recruiter and you have a good agency like you guys that really understand Red Kite, and that we have very frank conversations about what we need and where Red Kite is at the moment and how something might work. That's why it doesn't work when you have agencies that just fling a CV, don't really understand, and somebody, internal recruiter that has had bad relationships with recruiters in the past and, it's just like, oh, no, I can do it myself. It doesn't work. This is...
Well, yeah, because it works both ways, doesn't it? They could close themselves off to talent that might be available. I mean, a lot of people that go through agencies, particularly the kind of recruitment that I do and Ryan does, sort of senior lawyers, partners, they won't put themselves on the market. They want to go via an agent. Yes. If you look at the big moves in the region, they're always via agents. Yeah. And it's because they want that buffer there. They want to find out about the culture. They want to know from us before they even...
Yeah, and you've got accessibility to all these firms, and they'll come to you and say, this is who I am, and that you are their consultant to say, I think this might work because X. So yeah, it's
about educating people as well, I think, in the market about the cultures of firms, because it's always amazing to me. A candidate will come to me, that's somebody that's known me for a long time, as a place in a previous role or whatever, and they'll have a perception of a firm which is 9 times out of 10 completely wrong. Yeah. So it's about educating them about,
Yeah, and Red Kite is a prime example where they've grown very quickly and become a very different firm in quite a short amount of time, and people might still see them as kind of a high street agency, and we're not. Yeah. And it's without you guys being out in the market and having these conversations with individuals, it's very difficult, and it takes a long time to be able to change perception of a company.
Yeah. Just on Karen's point, I think if we don't have them relationships, the clients we work with the best with is because we understand their business. Yeah. We have fantastic relationships with internal recruitment, HR, and partners. Yeah,
we're extensions of each other, and we're working towards the same goal.
If we've got that trust where we understand the business, then it's going to go a lot. At the end of the day, you're going to throw the laws a lot.
And a law firm is not a law firm. So people think, oh, yeah, it's a law firm, and they have a perception of it, but they're all such different individual businesses.
Culture, whether you want them or not, the cultures are good or bad.
The question I always think about from an external kind of recruitment rather than in-house is, how do you balance promoting kind of existing talent that you have in a house already, bringing in kind of like a new perspective from outside?
So there's always the right time to bring in external talent. And I think, when you're looking for maybe innovation or diversity of thought, and you've got to a point where, additional headcount is required, then it's absolutely the right time. But I think there always has to be, if you're a company like Red Kite that is so dedicated to developing individuals' career paths, I think there should always be a first stop. What have we got internally? Who wants to be developed? Who have we got that's got this pending talent that we need to make the most of? Is there a way that we can develop them into that role beforehand?
Yeah.
Better than making these snap decisions. We need an additional person over here. Let's go out and recruit. It's more do that earlier. Let's develop somebody into that role where they want to and where we can. So it's about having those internal first conversations, having those really transparent sort of succession pathways and what people need to do in order to get there, transparency in where we're going and what we're doing, so people know what the options might be in the future. When we do interview internal and external, that we're assessing for the same qualities, and we're doing it without bias, and we're using a framework to do that. But also, we're doing promotion. I think we have 2 promotion cycles internally a year, giving people those opportunities to step forward regularly. We're always saying, have a look weekly, this is what we've got open. Anybody that's interested, just have a conversation. And sort of, identifying really when we have a new role, it's less that we've got a vacancy coming up. It's more about making a business case about there's a skill set here that we need to bring in because of X. And that means that it gives us the opportunity to look at, existing teams, what they can provide, what they can't, and then we make a more informed decision about who we want to bring in or who do we develop into that. So it's balanced, but very heavily looking at what we've got already and how we can develop it, and hiring on potential rather than existing skill sets.
And from like a strategic perspective, what do you see the biggest difference between, in-house recruitment and agency recruitment?
Well, in terms of process, I think we try not to have a huge amount of difference in terms of the process. So like I said, we make it a very strong framework. I'm working really hard to develop a behaviour thread with everyone that we bring in. So we look at, departments, roles, locations, and what behaviours are successful from people that are doing really well. And then we're hiring against those behaviours. And I think when you're bringing in people internally, we still have to follow the same process. Is it the right time for them? We can look at their longer term career plans. Is it a good next step for them? Is it going to be too much? Are we able to put things in place that's going to be able to support them? And then externally, we have to still have quite a rigorous assessment sort of structure when we're looking externally to make sure that we're assessing for the same things. But it shouldn't be too different. I don't think the process, internal and external, but we can then look and say, okay, so this person is interested in doing this, and what can we do to support them in the future? And it might give you a bit of a boost later when we have a role that does come up.
I think that leads me to kind of the next point, where the market in Cardiff, or the market in South Wales, has changed dramatically, and there's so many more firms that have come in the last 5+ years.
Yeah,
I think it's fine in the external hiring, but also retention is so key. How would you say Red Kite are approaching retention and making sure staff are happy and making sure that salaries are up to date and things like that? Is that a quite large part of your?
It's huge. And this is, where the relationship with you guys comes in. I'm new to law, and I've worked in a lot of different industries, and coming into an industry, you learn the basics of it very quickly, but the nuances of law are quite complex, and understanding, the different types of law firms, the different levels of people and attitudes that you'll get within those. And we've talked about this quite a lot, and we will continue to do so. But for us, it's about constant feedback loops internally, and having conversations externally to make sure that we're staying competitive, but also understanding, what the snags are internally. Are people happy? We do stay interviews, as well as sort of general feedback to understand. I'm not saying, we get it 100% right all the time. It's our step towards improving that level of retention, but also it starts at the beginning of making sure that the people that you're bringing on are set up for success, that you're bringing people in with the right behaviours to thrive within Red Kite. Those are the people that we'll retain, as well as constantly looking to make sure that you're giving them what they need, and the flexibility, and the structure and the progression that they need to do really well in the role and be happy. So there's a lot of things, but I think feedback loops in collaboration with you guys is
really interesting. Someone that's coming to join you in the near future commented to me the other day that they couldn't believe that Red Kite had somebody that was dedicated to looking after the people who work for the firm.
See, that's wild to me.
and this person's like quite an experienced lawyer, so they're not somebody who's new to law, but but we're really impressed by the fact that that you have a head of people, basically. Somebody who's head of operations, who's head of making sure that the people that work at Red Kite are happy and that the culture is right. So that's a really interesting feedback.
Yeah, and something we're going to do more of, and we're looking to sort of think a lot more about L&D in the coming years. But yes, we just hired a HR operations, and our HR team has grown massively in the last 6 months to be able to be accessible and provide that level of support to the people that are coming in, because we get great talent, fantastic people. We want to make them happy. We want Red Kite to have a great name. We want people to enjoy their careers with us, and unless you're very truly sticking to what you say you're doing with that, then you will of course lose people. So yeah, I want to look after Red Kite folks.
I think one of the things that we're obviously myself and Karen are very aware of is the well-being, the flexibility at Red Kite are always a massive priority, and it's something that everyone speaks always very highly of. Yeah. How does the firm approach that while still keeping a sense of teamwork and accountability? Because at the end of the day, it's fine having them two things, isn't it? But obviously teamwork and accountability has to be one of the main priorities for business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and also there's lots of different ways to approach wellness as well. There's a lot of companies that offer things like yoga and headspace and fruit on a Friday and ping pong or whatever, but we're very focused on getting the basics right, which is kind of intentional support and psychological safety, so people are able to communicate what their issues are. And it might be, we've gone too flexible and we haven't got team support on a Friday in a certain area, but because we're able to have these discussions and everybody feels comfortable to say, boy, that's not working, then we can play around with that and see what can work for everybody. We have a conversation and we work through it as adults. So it's about empowering our managers to be kind leaders without being, that doesn't mean that you're weak leaders. It means that you're approaching things sensibly with everyone's well-being and what we want to do in mind, whilst managing the needs of the business at the same time. So it's, if you're an employee that feels supported and engaged by the firm, and you understand what the firm's priorities are and what your part is to play within that, then you're going to be a lot more open to us when we say, we need to do a bit of flexibility here, and how can we work together to find a solution. Everyone's invested in it succeeding, and they know that ultimately we want to look after them at the same time. So it's a balance and it's a conversation.
I suppose it's down to the clients as well, isn't it? What their clients still got some clients, West Wales clients, maybe the high street clients that you've dealt with over the years that want that. I suppose that face-to-face contact, they're always coming in the office. You're trying to balance that, isn't it? With also making sure that the well-being and effectivity is.
We do work from home a lot of the time. Our office, we do say that all of our offices have got access to all the departments that we work with. So if you're, living in Swansea or Cirencester, then you can speak to anybody within one of our departments. It might not necessarily mean that they're in the office right then, there, that second, but they're accessible, and they, we'll make that happen. Yeah, it's a balance. Having an adult conversation.
I think this leads me on to my next point when we kind of discussed that. I think brand is so important. From an internal point of view, how do you ensure that your agency partners are representing your brand accurately? Because I think that's, we feel we were bought onto Red Kite and we want to represent you in the best possible way. Exactly. And we want to do everything right by the clients. But I suppose from your side, how do you ensure that agencies and agency partners are representing your brand accurately?
I think, again, it's communication. And I think one of the first things when I started working here and working with you guys is that you felt, there were things happening within Red Kite that you weren't aware of, and you couldn't articulate that or sell that appropriately to candidates. So it's about me knowing what sort of information is useful for you guys to know. It's me being able to trust you with certain amounts of information that, we're ready to disclose. And I think I need the kind of relationship with you where you tell me what is useful. I can create lots of things with marketing to help, articulate different departments and locations and what we're doing and what we're doing well and who we're hiring. But I need to find a good way to be able to articulate that to you and to help you understand it. We talk every day, about all sorts. If you have an agency that emails you a CV, and I don't know them, I'm like, well, have you had a conversation with that candidate where they're engaged with the idea of Red Kite? What have you said to them about them? Why are they interested? And of course, you find out that they're not really interested. It's just a CV that's floated by and they think, oh, well, I'll give it a go. So there's huge value in having a very close relationship. We're extensions of each other in this. So you kind of have you have to have as much visibility as I've got to be able to articulate that. So that is just that relationship.
I think from an external point of view, what would you say I suppose the challenges that internal recruitment partners face that maybe external agencies etc. maybe cannot always appreciate?
I mean, I tell you most things, and I think it's very difficult to articulate the pace that is required. And, if you haven't spoken to people and you've done some headhunting, but there's nobody coming back, I kind of have to communicate that to the hiring managers that are like, no, we need people immediately now. And there's always going to be challenges with pace and managing expectations. But, I think as long as you work hard to keep each other in the loop, it's not unmanageable. But yeah, it's that balance between pace and managing expectation.
Yeah, and it's also as well when we have conversations and you'll say to me, why are there whatever practice area it is, why are there no people? And I'll be like, well, this is why I can give you honest feedback to that,
it's so helpful.
Yeah.
Like we were having a conversation the other day about, how, I mean, again, because I'm new to law, it's good for you to be able to feed me this information, but how, on the commercial side of things, not as many firms have commercial people, and they're bigger companies, and it's more difficult to get people out that. So these little insights are so useful for me to go back and say to the hiring managers, like, these are the challenges, like, how do we circumnavigate this? But yeah, there's always going to be, I think for me, I need you guys to be feeding me that so that I can understand it better.
From a 70 person firm in West Wales to a 300 staff, and how the practice areas have developed, your competition of where you're attracting these individuals from changes.
Yeah.
So you're not looking at conveyancing, private client, family, you're looking at corporate, looking at commercial property, you're looking at commercial litigation. There's difference, and competition is different.
Yeah.
So then your expectations around salary, et cetera, change.
Exactly. And whilst, at the same time, you're feeding into me what is going on in the market that will affect, whether we're going to struggle in this, and me saying, these departments have a slightly different culture and these are the sorts of people that we require here. So it's,
It's a two-way street, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's a lot of information to understand.
And I think we appreciate that. You can't run away from your client. You can't just take a break, can you? Like, we can sometimes take a break, because if you take a step back and say, right, okay, I'm just gonna have a think about this. Your audience is captive, so they're there all the time, so they're constantly. So it's important for us to update you and let you know what's going on, so that, because obviously it affects things internally then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I thought my next point was about how long we've only been here for 9 months, and it seems like for us, we've known you for so much longer. Yeah, that's great to go from your first 9 months in post, which just sounds crazy. But what has surprised you most about the internal recruitment landscape from a legal side in that short period of time that you've been here?
I think I touched on this just now, but it's the complexity. Like I said, I came in and I understood how law worked, obviously, and I can understand what the different departments are within this firm, and that's great. But the variety of roles, the types of people that you'll get within different spaces, the different people that you'll get within the different regions that you're working, and the different dynamics that you have, the depth of, stakeholder relationships that are needed, and, the nuances that you need to understand, it's complex. It's probably one of the more complex industries that I've worked in. That, and I think the other thing that's a bit surprising within law is that it's probably one of the slower industries in terms of uptake of technology and being modern. And you can very much get sort of lawyers and solicitors that work in a very modern way, and the sort of old school crew that don't. And, there's lots of very different pockets of people within this, and it's difficult to navigate that.
I suppose things like flexible working, hybrid working, isn't it? If it wasn't for COVID, then maybe law firms would still be in the office
possibly
prior to that. So I suppose it touches on to my next point about kind of like technology and AI and automation. How much do you think is, from an internal point of view, how much do you think is hype, and how much do you think that might change your role and
I think
our firm?
Certainly from my perspective, AI within talent acquisition is kind of a project of mine, and I'm quite passionate about it. And I think we'd be remiss to put it into the hype category. We will all use it, and I've said this before, that we're kind of split into two camps of people that are afraid of it and a bit like, oh, let's not touch that. There's a lot of, we don't get the candidate experience, it's not as good, and let's just leave it until somebody tells us what to do with it. And then the other camp of people that are trying it, lean in, see what it can do for you. It's not all going to work. The vast majority of it is not going to be that great, but keep leaning in, keep seeing what you can do with it, because ultimately, we all use ChatGPT. We can't get away from it. It's great, honestly, isn't it? So I think from my perspective, AI comes in when I'm looking at things like the content and process automation. And a lot of people use it within sourcing, and I know LinkedIn use it quite a lot with the sort of searches you're doing, etc. But when it comes to things like judgment and empathy and understanding culture and those individuals' culture, that will never be replaced. Do you think we have to be, quite careful now with a lot of process automation that we have? Is fantastic. And it means that recruitment teams are a lot smaller. One person can do the role of a lot of individuals. But you have to make sure that the well-being of that person is protected, because you can get out of control. But I think the most important thing when it comes to AI and automation is continually leaning in, embrace it, see what's out there, try it. It won't do any harm. Better prompts on ChatGPT to get the most out of what we do have available, but always maintain that sort of human part of it. I think, like I said earlier, I think law is probably a little bit slower on the uptake of the technology. Red Kite, not so much. We're doing a little bit more, which is great. And they're always open for us suggesting all sorts of things that we can use. But we're very much in the beginning stages of this within all industries. So we've got to try it carefully. We have to create your own guidelines of what is acceptable, what isn't. Don't put personal information in this. Be sensible about it, but try it, lean in and give it a go. And I think Red Kite is quite open to trying new things, which is useful, but you have to keep your foot on the pedal.
So just because me and Callum were meeting recently with a client, and they were saying that their own clients were now asking them about whether they used AI.
Nobody knows really what that means, though. Yeah. They're looking for other people's opinions on what are you doing? Am I missing out on something? And that's, good to ask, because maybe they are.
It's obviously a cost-saving way of them doing it, because they're thinking, well, maybe there's less people that have to do that type of work.
This is what I mean.
That's what I thought.
But I think law is quite unique, because I've had a lot of feedback from law firms where maybe they've got lawyers there that are complaining that their clients are using ChatGPT. And so I've had one recently where the lawyer told me that their client was using ChatGPT, and everything ChatGPT was saying was actually legally not right. Yeah. And so it's unique, isn't it, in law firms, that actually you need that stability and you need that human
judgment. Because we have a responsibility to put in guardrails now and to say everyone's going to use it. This is the parameters in which we're happy for you to use ChatGPT or whatever software there is coming in. But ultimately, we are a people-focused company, brand. We always will be. And yes, that empathy and that judgment is something that you will never get via AI, and it's a partnership. So it's really looking at how do we improve processes and experience as opposed to replacing what we do.
Yeah, and it's an interesting tool. Like, sometimes I'll write a job advert on somewhere like LinkedIn, and then AI will rewrite it for me. But 9 times out of 10, I'll revert to my.
I've never used that. I've seen it.
Yeah, revert to my original copy of it, because it's almost standardized. It's almost like, you can tell it's been written by AI, and some people don't want that.
And ultimately, we will use it more. And again, that's about, how do we get better at putting the prompts in and having AI understand where we're coming from, and that will take time, but. It will be better, but we're not at the point yet, I don't think, where we can lean on it as heavily as some people do.
I think it probably leads up to my next point, where I said about kind of keeping up with trends in the recruitment market. I think that's pretty important, having that relationship with us. But particularly within the legal sector, how do you feel keeping up with trends and things like that? Do you think the market is changing considerably from an internal point of view?
So, I mean, from my perspective, there's a lot of things like looking at a lot of going into sort of looking at legal market data, and you guys helping me with that a lot and letting me know what those trends are. These meetings, we have at this point in a year where we're looking at, what has changed in the last few months and how can we stay one step ahead of it is super useful. So relationships with you guys, people that are out in the market, but also talking to the candidates. They're the ones that are out there, and those are the ones that have the expectation, and you can learn so much from them. For me, it's obviously, networking, legal events, and out into the universities and spending time with the kids to see what they're looking for as they're coming through. But it's about having that continuous improvement mindset, I think, to be able to sort of stay ahead of that. But it's that constant benchmarking and really, leaning on people that are in the market to be able to tell me what that is. Finding a nugget of something that I don't understand and then going out and finding more about it.
I think the recruitment market is so fast paced and so
quick
changes
change
all the time. Really interesting. I've got a really good working relationship with another agency in Cardiff, and we were working with a client, and we were asked to do a salary survey. And it was really interesting because we were there together, talking to the client together, and she looked at me and I looked at her, and she said, "Well, at the moment, the market is so changing so fast. What I can tell you today, I was about to say exactly the same. We were both in exactly the same position because things are just changing." And she said it's a bit like the Wild West out there at the moment because, there is no predictability. And where we may have been able to, before COVID, give you an exact answer on perhaps the salary bands because it was quite rigid. Since COVID particularly, things have changed a lot,
Even things like location, it's more accessible to live in Haverfordwest and still have a high paid role, and it skews it all. And gone are the days where you can pay less because they're in a different place.
Although we are seeing it's really interesting. I've got an in-house role at the moment, and I've had a lot of applicants from places like Manchester, Leeds, when actually the client is based in the Southwest and wants somebody who is based in the Southwest because they want someone in the office. But we're also getting feedback that a lot of law firms are saying, well, we need to see people more in the office. We want that 3-2 split as a general rule.
Yeah.
Though we are hearing a bit more of that as well. We want more people in the office.
I think that's not just this industry. I think all industries are having a little bit of a return to work. There's always been, I've worked remotely for a long time, way before COVID, and there has always been sort of a work from home pile of people, and then and obviously that the people that didn't have obviously evolved that, but there is certainly a step back. I think for us, because the flexibility is so important and such a key part of our culture, that's not something that will change. However, we don't have any fully remote roles. All of ours are hybrid. There has always been office present. So I think it's, again, about balance. And that won't change for us. But it's little things like that, seeing the transition back. Not everybody wants to be back in the office and, finding roles that suit them better. But and things, things change within legislation and, within residential property, new things coming in all the time, and it changes the role for people and you get movement within that. So it changes day to day, month to month.
So looking ahead for the next 2-3 years, and even into next year, what excites you most about the future of Red Kite and the wealth legal community as a whole?
I'll keep saying it, but the growth of Red Kite is really exciting, and the way that we're going to grow with that sort of organic kind of doubling across England and Wales in the next few years means that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people that work within Red Kite to develop their careers really well. The way that we structure our career pathways is there's lots of different routes within the roles that you can go down. So within a partner, you'll have people that are better at or want to pursue leadership or business development or technical side of things. So it's what we try to do is curate roles where we have talent in front of us, and often you guys share talent with us that we hadn't considered, and we create something really great for them and move with what we have in front of us rather than what we might necessarily have as a preconceived direction for the company. And it's giving people the opportunity to have to think about their career in a way that they might not have before. Whilst maintaining that culture of flexibility. And it makes us very competitive within the space. And it means that other law firms will need to stay competitive with that. And it's creating a really exciting, hopefully a wider exciting culture within law, within Wales, as the market becomes more competitive and more options become available. So I think it will put the law space in raising the bar essentially within the legal career space within Wales, and that's got to be a good thing. And hopefully Red Kite is a big catalyst for that change.
Thank you. It's been whenever we both speak to you, we always
have good chats.
Yeah, we always have. It's been even more amazing to have you on. Thank you for giving us such an insight into yourself, in terms of your journey, the firm, the person behind the title. To our listeners, thank you for joining us. We'll be back soon with more conversations across the legal world. But for now, thank you, Mel. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. That was good fun.